Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We are supposed to have Peter Tessier making his grand return, and Eklund will be here as well in a few minutes. We'll start with some pre-show stuff. I have a number of things to talk about, rumor-wise and news-wise. Russ, get us started.
Hold on.
Uh-oh, are we going to hear ourselves talk again?
We might. It didn't go. Actually, it did go. Hold on.
Good. That's good.
Russ, get us started.
There you go. There you go.
I tried. Anyhow, let's talk again about the Tom Brady trademark issue because I've trademarked stuff. I've done that, and I've gone through the process. And when you do that, you have to send it into the Library of Congress, and they look at it. They don't give you an automatic trademark. They look at it and see, is there like any confusion in the marketplace? And if there is, then you may not get it. So they look at that and say, well, who really should own this trademark? And so
copyright.
Tom Brady has put it in. He put it in for Tom Terrific. And so over the last couple of days, if you look online and social media, it's been pretty clear that Tom Seaver should be the one that owns it, and Tom Brady shouldn't be allowed to trademark it. Now, Boston.com, in a very trolly, smarmy way, decided, hey, they were going to cover this. And there was there were some fans that put together like this Tom Brady, we're going to throw his jersey in the garbage can thing in New York within a couple of days' notice. I think they even had Ed Krankle there, but there wasn't a lot of people there, right? So they wanted to cover it. But here's the low-class part of all this. Boston.com, if you're really going to back Tom Brady on this, got to remember, Tom Seaver is sick right now with dementia. Right. He's not even in the public eye to defend himself for any of this. Yeah. So, covering that party and saying, here's what they did in New York. Listen, that's like 1/1,000,000th of what would happen in New York if you went there and had like a public rally for it. But if you look online, that's where you could see the vitriol from a lot of national media folks too, people who aren't even fans of Tom Seaver, but just believe, hey, he's that guy. Mm-hmm. And where did Tom Brady get this nickname from anyhow?
Well, apparently, and I heard some reportage on it this morning that in the Boston area, Boston radio stations started referring to him as Tom Terrific. Now that's dumb. I mean, because for people of our generation, we know it's Seaver. And, I had a lot of respect for Seaver. I liked him as a broadcaster after his career when he's on the Yankee broadcast with Rizzuto. And he was a phenomenal pitcher, one of the better pitchers of all time. So, and the thing is, the nickname that's been established for Brady has been TB12. Right. So I don't get why this is such a big deal, why he's trying to corner the market on this. And if there is a battle over the copyright regarding that conflict, I think he's going to lose that because everybody knows it's been established for 50 years that Tom Seaver is Tom Terrific. I don't care.
Complained online too, and it wouldn't shock me if they file some paperwork.
Yeah. Now, I just have to do this occasionally because, I'm a big music fan and we both like the same type of music, although I think we're both very diverse in terms of the music that we like. But what we were weaned on was progressive rock.
Yes.
And I always have a bone to pick with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they have dragged their feet when it came to progressive rock. Now, in the last few years, they've been loosening up because they could not ignore that particular genre of music any longer. The bands that were not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame from that. It was only, if you want to categorize Pink Floyd as progressive rock, I don't. I think they're more psychedelic art rock, but they were like the only ones. And then finally, Genesis, Rush, Yes.
I do remember with Yes, they had him there for a concert a few years before when Chris Squire was alive. And they still didn't get in. And that's what made me so mad because then Chris Squire passed away and he never knew he would get in,
Right. So now it's the point, and we've seen this in other genres of music. I don't believe rap artists should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I can't say that they haven't had influence on rock music. So that's what they've put them in there under the influence category. And there are other musical, genres that they've let the influencers in, even though in terms of success and selling records, they weren't as much as the popular artists of that particular genre. And this is where I have a problem. Now, the great influencer of progressive rock, I think Russ will agree once he comes back, is King Crimson. And King Crimson is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the reason this came up is because I'm listening to my iPod on in my car on the way home, and a King Crimson song comes on. And I'm sorry, when you talk about influence, King Crimson, for people who don't know, King Crimson was a band in the late 60s, basically the founder of progressive rock, and influenced Genesis. Genesis even bought the Mellotron from King Crimson. So, there was that direct influence. A member of Yes became a member of King Crimson. A member of King Crimson became a member of Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And just the type of music they played was a new form. And I know ELP is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think they deserve to be because they sold a ton of records. But hand in hand with that, eventually, I would say in the next few years, if King Crimson is not in there, I'm going to start to have a problem, because the influencers in almost every other genre are in, and they deserve to be in.
That's true. It's a great point. I was not a big fan, but I did see them back in the day when they did tour. I want to say maybe in the early 80s with Bruford. Bruford went back there for a while.
Yeah.
And I have to say, it was a great concert. Like, it was, do I love Robert Fripp? Yes and no. There's good times and good songs and bad songs for me, but I can see why people really liked it. It's definitely unique. Does it deserve to be in there? Yeah. Because if I start going through the list, I could pick off 30 or 40 that put in after King Crimson.
And not only ELP, not only Yes, not only Genesis, but UK and Asia specifically. Members of those bands went on to form, and talking about millions and millions of records. So I mean, honestly, I think that they deserve to be in, and we'll see in the next few years if they get in.
Fair point.
Okay, all right. We'll start the show. We are almost have Eklund, and Peter will be here in a few minutes. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2019.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology, and it's just me and Mike. Like, everybody says they're going to be here. Nobody's here. Like, this is like, Mike and I are going to the mall. Yeah, we'll meet you at the mall. And then nobody's
never show up
at the mall. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. That tripped me up a little bit there, Russ.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start with this just because I was at the press conference this morning. For Ralph Krueger, his introductory press conference for as head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. He'd been named a week or a little over a week ago, more like 2 weeks ago. And, it was 20 minutes, and it was pretty interesting, but, nothing revelatory. I mean, he talked about, how he's not going to look back on what some of the players or what the organization has done over the last year or 5 years or 10 years, but he's going to look forward, which to me is sort of code for some of the guys that people want out of here. I'm going to give them another chance, or I'm going to evaluate them. I think that there's going to be changes in the organization, but I think a guy like Zemgus Girgensons or a guy like Ristolainen, who's been rumored to be traded numerous times over the last 2 or 3 years, they're going to take a fresh look under Krueger to see if they can, find their way and become contributing players. So that was interesting. Of course, all the focus after when I was in the scrum with Jason Botterill, their GM, was about Jeff Skinner. And Russ, I get the feeling from what Botterill said, and he essentially said, well, we put an offer on the table. We don't have a deadline. We've made it clear we want the player.
Well, they will have a deadline. It's just
what I'm saying is they don't have a deadline. Like, we need to know if you're going to sign by the 23rd. Otherwise,
No, I get it. But by the time, it's June 30th, then, your deadline's pretty much there if he hasn't said anything.
Well, and that's the point. The point being, every ball is in Jeff Skinner's court. It's now up to him. If we take the reporting as accurate, that he's been offered an 8-year deal, anywhere between $8.5 to $9.5 million, then the Sabres, have made their offer and they put it on the table. And now it's a question of whether Newport Sports and Don Meehan and Jeff Skinner want to accept it. I personally believe that if it's the 9-figure, it's a shorter term deal. That if it's an 8-year deal, then the Sabres want to spread the AAV out longer and get a lesser cap hit.
Yeah.
But the whole point being, Skinner's in control of this scenario, and if he wants to play here, great. And if he doesn't want to play there, or if he wants to see where the market is, then he goes to the 5-day window and then makes a decision then.
Yeah, I think right now he's going to wait a little while longer. They're going to talk to everybody out there who might be interested in Skinner. And then I think he'll give an indication to Buffalo what he's thinking. But ultimately, I think he's going UFA. Even though he got this offer, I think he is going to still test the market. And it doesn't mean he won't come back.
Right.
It doesn't mean he won't accept that offer on the table. But again, teams in other sports, you've noticed this, have gotten pretty snippy about players not getting back to them about offers on the table. So even though there's no deadline now, there will be a time when they start getting a little annoyed that they haven't heard back from him about this offer.
Zach, I was just telling Russ about I went to the Ralph Kruger press conference this morning, and Jason Botterill talked after. And essentially he said, we want the player. We've made it clear that we want the player, meaning Skinner. We've put an offer on the table. There's no deadline. He says, he was asked whether it was close or not. He says, I think so. And people tried, other reporters tried to, I'm getting who's playing the thing in the background. I can hear myself talk.
My bad.
Oh, okay. Other reporters tried to phrase the question differently just to get to try to get the same answer. And, he wasn't biting. But the impression that I got was the Sabres have put their offer on the table. The ball is in Skinner's court, and it's all a question of whether he wants to sign or he wants to see what's out there and then come back to the Sabres. And the Sabres don't really know. It's almost like they've done all they can do. Now it's up to Skinner.
Yeah, I get that sense too, talking to people over there. I really do. And hello everyone. Thanks. So good to be back. It's been been unbelievably crazy week. So I appreciate you guys carrying the boat. The more I talk to people over there, the more I get the real impression that this has been such a roller coaster ride that they're at the point now where they just want an answer, but they don't. No one's going to be, they're still, lollygagging around it and tiptoeing and walking on, eggshells. All the possible cliches you can throw out there. They really want to make sure they don't piss off Skinner or his group. They definitely want an answer. They feel like they deserve an answer because it is a good offer. And the initial thought with Skinner, like we talked about before many times, was that he wasn't going to re-sign there. Then he had a good year, and now he has this great connection, with other players on the team, and it really seems like he wants to come back. And then I don't think he's going to get more money from anybody else. I really don't. I mean, and I think that they feel that way too, which is what's a little bit tough on the Sabres. Is I feel like they're kind of not insulted, but they know that this is the best situation for him. They know that they're throwing a ton of money at him. This should be done. Uh-oh. Don't hear you, Mike. I don't hear you. I don't hear you at all. All right. Who hears Mike and who doesn't? Russ is gone. All right. All right. I'll come back and see. Do you hear me? Okay. I don't hear you. Weird. All right, I'll be right back. Sorry, guys. Let me see if I hear Peter real quick. Peter? I don't hear me there. All right, back. Bye.
I'm back. Now I can't hear you. Hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear Peter. I don't hear Mike.
It's always Russ.
It could be. There's a lot going on today, Peter,
Oh.
So how was your trip?
It was really nice.
Well,
Oregon was lovely. Washington was lovely.
How about now?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
I got you now.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds lovely.
So
Now-
I was saying there. Sorry, Peter, interrupt. So really, honestly, what I think is the Sabres really feel like they put out a serious play for Skinner. They feel like it's enough money for him. They feel like he's not going to get more money elsewhere, which I think might be true, which is pretty crazy because this is probably the best situation for him. And I still think they feel like they're being raked over the coals a little bit by it.
Well, I think that's the case because, in a way, because I don't think there's a lot of confidence from many corners of the hockey world that the Sabres are on a positive track to success. I mean, they've got talent, but based on what's happened over the last few years, they haven't made the playoffs in 8 seasons. They've had a number of general managers and coaches. None of them have had any success. You've got Eichel, you've got Dahlin, Skinner. Skinner is deciding on whether this team is going to win in the next 3 or 4 years, which are the remaining prime years of his career. And the impression that I get from what is going on locally is the Sabres are offering a shorter term deal for that 9.5 figure, not 8 years. That the 8-year deal is probably the AAV is lower. It's under 9. And that might be the sticking. Now, I don't think he's going to get $9 million from anybody else, but I think he's being compensated for rolling the dice that this team may not be competitive.
Well, that's the whole thing. If a competitive team even gives him a little less, he still may go there.
Right.
Well, I think that I think you guys are, I don't know. It feels like everyone's picking on the Sabres a little much here because I honestly think
picking on them. I mean, if this were you, and even though you got this is like any other day. Go back to when, you were getting job offers when you were out in the job market. I've had offers from places that were higher than places that I was working at.
Yeah.
When I looked it over and I sort of walked around the property, let's say it was a hotel, I kind of decided, this isn't my kind of place, or this has more potential. But that's
true. That's true. But but at the end of the day, and this is what you really have agents for. This is what your agent's supposed to do is put you in the best possible situation to succeed. Because another $1 million and you go somewhere and you flop after 2 years of that 9-year deal or whatever, that's a problem. So this, to me, yes, you can sit there. If you're Skinner, if you're asking for $9 million. I have a little bit of a tough time with people who are asking for that kind of money and saying that the team isn't, doing enough to be a winner. If you are getting $9 million, you are what has to make the team a winner. Okay, that's your job.
Well, yeah,
but that's you can't sit back and say, and Russ, your point is well taken. I mean, I've gotten job offers. I got one a couple weeks ago. Even just I get a lot of job offers to go work for other major hockey situations like that, but this is the best spot for me, even though it's not maybe the most money. I get to control my destiny. I get to do what I need to do with my family. I get to be independent. I get to, employ other people and keep that. So I know that this situation for me is the best.
Work with us guys. Like, he didn't even say that.
Right. What'd you say? No, to work with you guys.
He didn't even say work with us. Like, we're like 100th on the list.
Yeah, not 100th, but in the 20s. So yeah, I think that there's no question.
But the point here, Peter, is that if Skinner is asking for 9 or 9.5, we're talking Mark Stone, Ovechkin territory.
Yeah,
we're not talking Phil Kessel, who's making 8. And I know the percentage of cap is different because the cap is going to go up, but still, the number is 9.5 or 9, and that's that territory. And I don't think anybody, and I like Jeff Skinner. I think he's a really good player. I don't think anybody is putting Jeff Skinner in that category.
Yeah,
no,
but Jeff Skinner is.
Well, no, but Peter, what do you think of that?
If Jeff Skinner thinks he can get $9 million or more on the open market, then he should go do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what he should do. If he thinks he likes the security of Buffalo and he's got to take a little bit for that security and knows that he's going to get it, then he should do that. I mean, right now with the way teams are, there's very few that have $9.5 million in cap space for Jeff Skinner, and also are going to be a decently competitive team or on the rise. And it could be something that totally handcuffs them.
Right.
right? Like
a team like Columbus, who's losing people could afford to sign Jeff Skinner and might look at him as an option.
And Columbus might be a team that just literally shuffles the deck chairs in terms of where they're assigning money and talent, right?
Right.
So you may go to Columbus knowing that they're doing this and this, but it hasn't moved the needle for them. It's just changed who's driving the bus on Columbus.
True.
Right.
True.
Yeah. So I mean, and the one thing I asked Bottrell in the scrum, and I think this is, I asked it only because not specific to Buffalo, but just the market and what we're going to be dealing with the next 5 or 6 weeks is what is the chatter like in terms of trades as opposed to say the last couple of years. And he really didn't answer. He said, there's a lot of chatter. I know Kyle Dubas last week said, the chatter is significantly higher.
Oh, it's not even close. Anybody's. I mean, if I tell you the amount of calls I'm getting during the day and stuff like that, and just the amount of texts I'm getting during the day, it's like it's insane. Like I don't even know if I can, I've got issues. My son's got health issues, obviously, and I'm supposed to go to Boston, drive to Boston tomorrow. I don't know with all the It may be the rumors themselves that keep me back, because there is so much, like being on the phone and being able to deal with all that stuff and driving, 6 hours tomorrow. I don't know that I can do it. I mean, there's a lot. We're going into this weekend is going to be this. We're looking at a weekend, I think, that's going to be altering towards where we're going. The stuff that we just saw, what we obviously what we always saw with the Flyers making their deal for their guy that we had talked about, the Flyers were interested in quite a bit on here. That is just the beginning of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg of other teams trying to make deals like that, trying to get guys rights because it makes sense, and to kind of like tie up the Skinner thing and move on to this because it connects together is, teams are desperate because there is so much available. They're desperate to have loose ends tied up in any way they can. The Sabres want this done because they have other things. So for Skinner to sit in their mind, for Skinner to sit there and say, we need to know you're going to do more. They're sitting there saying, we can't do more, buddy, until we get you done.
Right.
Once we get you done, we can then be free to do more. But to sit back and say, you want us to do more and then we're going to get you done. If that happens, we won't be able to get you done because we'll have to make other choices.
And at a certain point, Bottrell's got to say, okay, I have other moves, plan Bs, plan Cs, in case Skinner doesn't sign. And if he doesn't sign, you almost have to have a deadline because then you can work on those moves. And they're a team, and we'll talk about like Marlowe and other players like this, but they're a team that has cap space. And for teams like Winnipeg and Tampa Bay, who've got players that they have to move out probably to open up cap space, Buffalo is one of a number of landing spots with like close to $30 million in cap space. That's the plan B. They're not going to replace Skinner by signing another free agent. They're going to replace him by trading for somebody.
It's an attractive landing space, Buffalo is. Don't kid yourself.
Not for free agents. That's the problem.
No, not necessarily. I mean, no, I think that's where you guys are underselling Buffalo because this Sabres team has struggled last year, but they also, they showed signs of it. They moved on, to a new coach. They've made decisions. They have good young players coming up. Everyone feels they have, they have lots of space. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to play hockey. It's a great hockey town.
But it's impossible to attract to attract a free agent. You have to overpay. They overpaid Kyle Opozo. They did.
No, they did overpay Kyle, but at the time with the Kyle Opozo. But that was pre Jack Eichel. That was pre Skinner in a way. That was pre Dahlin. Rasmus Dahlin is another one who really there are people there now that are way more attractive. There's way more of a potential there now than there was when Okposo was signing there.
I agree with that.
So then people look at them now. They're like, this team is not that far off because they have a superstar forward. They've got a superstar defenseman. They've got some goalies.
And what else? And that's the problem.
And what else is? I mean, they have other. I mean, the prospects better than me, Russ. But I hear good things about the prospects. I hear that that there's positive stuff there.
Michael Luukkonen's maybe 2 years away, so that's a really good thing. And then they have some others that I would say they have 3 or 4 other really good prospects.
They have 4 good defensemen. They have Montour, Ristolainen, Dahlin, and Jake McCabe. Mm-hmm. After that, Pilot is the guy they got from the SHL. Zach Bogosian is the human IR
Yeah, but he's not. When you're signing, you're not worried about Bogosian because he's not going to be there.
Well, no. But I'm just saying what they have in terms of being competitive. So, but anyway, let's not. I just want to.
But I think so. I think that. But what I'm saying is that there is a definite appetite, okay, for people to get, for teams to get things done now, to get things done sooner than later, to not wait till the draft or July 1st. Definitely not July 1st. And I think by July 1st, I have a sense that in the past couple, like last July 1st was not as interesting as the July 1st before it. If we go back to July 1st, if you remember, there was like a crazy amount of there were players involved, and we kind of knew where everybody was going to land, and everybody landed within the first hour. Remember, it was this crazy bang, bang, bang. This year we had Tavares, which kind of held stuff up a little bit. You had this big player. This year I don't think is going to be the hold stuff up. I think Panarin's going to get done before July 1st somewhere. I think they're going to trade his rights. He's going to get done.
I actually think it's going to be a sign and trade.
It could be, but
because I think he wants to get the 8 years, and I think the team who signs him wants to get the 8 years. I mean, Peter, this is the thing. It's like, because we're both going to be in Vancouver. I think there's going to be a lot of deals made before and at that draft because, like Eck is saying, I think teams, the Hayes deal shows that other organizations want to get a jump on other teams. Hayes would have drawn a lot of interest on July 1st. Philadelphia gave up a 5th-round pick just to get a 3-week window to negotiate.
Yeah, and I think when you target a player and that's what you want, giving up a late-round pick, particularly when you've got Philly is the 10th overall pick, right? 11th. When you've got the 11th overall pick, isn't a big loss, right? Like it's you're happy to do that, and the best part about that is they can get Hayes in town. They can get him. They can talk about who he's going to play with, and should they sign him, Philly. I was saying this I think I said in a group chat. I said they may have one of the best top 6s in the league. Mm-hmm. And it takes some pressure off of having to put Giroux into center if they need to. And it buys them some time with Patrick. Mm-hmm. And it's a great move for them. So why wouldn't you go all in to get this guy to like you, like where you're at, see what the franchise is about, and do things, and figure out and get exclusivity to talk to his agent about a deal for a 5th? It makes, if that's the guy you see as a possibility, do it. Yeah.
No, and I think I want to discuss this thing for a second because the most common question I've gotten, and I got this even, before they got Hayes. I was talking to somebody in Boston, and they said, the Flyers are really out there trying to get a second-line center. And I said, yeah, I know. And that really kind of shocks people around the NHL because they look at Nolan Patrick as a second-line center easily on this team, right? They look at, they you've got Couturier, you've got Giroux, and obviously they play together. But they're both centers as well. Russ, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I keep getting asked the question. I don't know how to respond to it. Does this mean the Flyers don't have faith in Nolan Patrick?
It's not that they don't have faith in him. It's just right now, based on there's 2 things going on here. The first one is management is basically saying you have to make the playoffs this year. That's what they're saying. So they're saying that, and Elaine Vigneault is looking at the team, and they're all huddling. They're saying, well, based on what Nolan Patrick gave us last year. Mm-hmm. We're not a playoff team if he's at 2C. It's that simple.
Right.
So we get Kevin Hayes, we push him back to 3C. He gets better matchups, and maybe he gets a little chip on his shoulder, and that helps him. Giroux's never going back to center. Like, Fletcher doesn't want him there. He's scoring 4 points on the way. That's not happening. So we know about that. Yeah. So I just think they look at it and they say, if you look at the better teams in the league, you have to have 3 good centers anyhow. This gives that, and we have size down the middle, which is what they've always liked.
The only thing I'd be concerned about, because I think you're right, Peter, that their top 6 would be one of the better in the league. But if you're putting Hayes as your second-line center, he's not the fleetest of foot in terms of center. No. You're talking about a number 2 line of JVR, Kevin Hayes, and Konechny. Konechny can fly. The other 2 can't. And in this league where it's speed, that's a problem. You may have to mix up the lines a little bit.
Mike, it's funny. He's not the fastest guy, but in open ice, he's fine. And actually very creative with passing. I think he can keep up with those guys. I'm not worried about it.
And he's
you know what's interesting in a short time at Winnipeg, and what I saw was I put out a tweet saying, you know, when the trade happened, I said, you know, Hayes, you know, good offensive skill, but he was a defensive liability. And I had a lot of pushback from some Jets fans. And I hadn't really looked at things like zone stars, hadn't really gone and looked at underlying numbers, just for what I remember from him at with stuff in the corners and things. Now, when some people threw some data at me, he may have some technical things to work on with how he does some work in his own end. But as a player of general skill and what he's doing, it's actually pretty darn good.
No, it's good.
And like, I think there's things that you see when you watch him play, Russ, and you were the first one to say this, like before even the trade happened. There's going to be some things that drive you nuts about Kevin Hayes.
Oh yeah.
But there's a lot of things there that with the right coaching staff, and now you got AV and these other guys, you know, might be able to really work with him and turn him into something. And if he sort of fits what, you know, the Flyers' vision of what they want as a team, again, it could be a really solid move. And the price, if it's 6.5, may not be a bad price for him.
I agree. I think 6.5 is probably what he'll get. And I think that's a good price. Like,
that does, though, another thing that does, and if they don't get it too, that if they signing Hayes right now has another kind of sneaky undertone to it for the Flyers. Konechny and Lawton aren't signed, right?
Yeah. Lawton, I don't think is a priority, but Konechny would be. Yeah.
He had a pretty good year last year.
Lawton, it doesn't matter. He's still not a priority.
Not a priority. Okay, no, I'm not talking about. I'm not saying Konechny's obviously a priority. Hartman's not signed. They'd like Hartman too.
Right.
They have, you know, obviously Provorov and Sanheim on defense, not signed. This is, you know, they're losing about $9 million in goalies, like that are coming off the cap. You know, like between Elliott, Talbot, and Neuwirth, you know, not all that. That's 4.2725. So that's even, it's $9 million in goalies that are coming off the cap. Right. You know, that $9 million is huge for them, right? So they are. And if you're Lawton's or Konechny's or Hartman's agent, I don't, you know, no matter what priority you are, you're asking for a certain amount of money, right? Now, Hayes comes in and signs for $6 million. That definitely puts the nervousness into the other guys. Like it throws, you know, maybe not so much Konechny because he's probably going to get his money, but for Lawton and Hartman, you might be able to get them to take $1 million less now because they feel like the pressure is on.
Or they take Bridges.
Well, I think this guarantees to put them into the Bridge category, Mike. And I think that you know, if just them knowing this, because if you're those guys and you're the agents working for those guys, and you're like, okay, we're trying to get in the Flyers, saying we only have a limited amount of money, and then the Flyers make this trade, then you're as an agent now, you're like, you know, what the heck, you know, like you're sitting there complaining about how you got money, you get out and got another $6 million player. You know, that really does. It is like a fear of God type thing that ripples through the team.
I will tell you the one negative is it slows down, again, the Provorov negotiations that have been going on forever. And, you know, because they only have a limited amount of time on this one. Yet the Provorov clock is ticking too on what they might do with that.
Yeah, and I think Provorov, I think there's going to be a game of chicken with Provorov. I really do. And I think that it's going to come down to, I would not be shocked at all if we see a holdout in Provorov. I really wouldn't.
No, I agree.
I think that's, you know, like 70% likely at this point.
I heard something from Elliot Friedman a couple of days ago that I think is interesting to talk about. And, you know, we've talked about Carlson, and, you know, last year when he made it clear that wherever he was going, it was going to be for 1 year. And he was going to go free agent. Well, I mean, San Jose apparently is interested in signing him. I don't know if it's going to be 8 years based on his injury history, but there is some interest in San Jose getting him locked up. But there's a time limit here, because if they don't get him signed by a certain point, they have all these other situations like Timo Meyer and Donskoy and Pavelski.
Yeah, they got a lot.
They got a lot of things, a lot of housekeeping. So they need to know ahead of time whether Carlson is going to sign there or not. The thing is, though, I mean, look at their breakdown in terms of money. You're talking, I believe that Vlasic is making over $8
Yeah.
Burns is making, I think, over 9. I'm going to look it up here.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up right now for you.
Yeah, you're talking about investing. Yeah, here you go.
Burns is 8, Vlasic is 7.
Yeah, so 15. So you're talking, and if Carlson is probably 9, or at least maybe more than that, then you're talking about $25 million on just your top 3D. That I mean, I'm sorry, that's too much, especially.
You're right. Anyone who gives Carlson more than 8 is crazy in my mind.
I think they are crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there are gonna be teams, Zach, that are crazy. If he wants to go to
for a very short term, okay, maybe like a 2-year deal.
Or 3, maybe 3.
They might go 3. I'd like to see 3 years, $30 million, but I don't think he'll take a deal like that.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, I think that Carlson, especially with his injury history, this is his last chance to get a big contract. He's not going to take 3 years. I think the minimum he takes is 5.
Someone will give him something silly. It's just a matter of who and does he want to go there. I mean, this talk that he might be going back to Toronto or Montreal or Ottawa is fascinating because they're 2 of the teams that would probably do that.
Right.
I'm going to give him a 0% chance for Ottawa, but I think Montreal is a likely place.
Montreal,
I don't think he's going back to Ottawa in any way, shape, or form.
If he really wants to put the royal screw to Melnick, he goes to Montreal.
Montreal's not possible, guys, because of the taxes in Montreal, because they'd have to go.
If his wife wants to be there, he might just deal with it.
Yeah, I get that, but they have to go
taxes in Toronto,
higher than Tampa. Like
in Ottawa, Montreal, potato.
Yeah,
but if Tampa is involved, which they are.
Yeah,
I mean, Tampa can go $2.5 million less than Montreal.
If they do that deal, right, they're going to be riding the summer cap so hard that they're going to be at a real disadvantage when they're moving players. So they have to be careful too.
Yeah, basically what will be the precursor of if Tampa is going after Carlson, and from everything that I've heard just by other people reporting, there's no way that Tampa is going to pay Carlson more than Hedman, and Hedman's making, I think, 7.5.
Yep.
Right. So if that's the case, and they're going to sign Braden Point, who's probably going to make in the same range too. That means you're trading probably 2 or 3 guys like Palat, Killorn, and Johnson. That's a big upheaval. And I don't think they will. I know that they fell in 4 straight, and there's change that's going to be necessary. But I don't think they want to move like an entire offensive line to re-sign Braden Point and bring in Carlson for probably a short window, like 3 or 4 years.
I mean, the guy that I keep hearing is JT Miller, who they could move.
I think they've wanted to move Miller even since last year.
Yeah. And there's actually people in the NHL who really like JT Miller. So, and his price tag at 5. What was that?
Size up the middle. He provides.
There's toughness there. The problem is his growth has sort of been stunted by the way he was sort of used in New York, and then Tampa, they just sort of put him right in, expected results, and he gave them to him early, and then it started to dip. Nobody's worked with him in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when you go into a situation like the one in Tampa, you're not going to get that kind of because there's so many other people that are taking the pressure isn't on JT Miller to perform at the level that he needs to be performing at in Tampa right now. And that's an issue. But but as far as $7 million for Carlson in Tampa, not undoable. That's not impossible.
Well, if he takes it, if he clearly wants to go there, but then in that instance, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 1 or 2 year deal, because why would you lock yourself up for 5-6 years at an amount that's lower than the $3 million lower than what some other teams might offer you? And the thing is like with his injury history, you don't know if after that 2 years you're going to drop off significantly. So
5 years and $35 million, I think he takes it.
5 years, $35 million from Tampa.
Yep, Tampa, I think he takes it because you're in a great situation. This team's going to be very good for a long time. You're in a great tax situation. You're playing with your buddy Hedman. You're living in Tampa, Florida, for crying out loud. It's not horrible. You have a chance to win the Stanley Cup all the time, and you're guaranteed $35 more million in your career. I think he takes it. I think he would take that in a heartbeat.
Now, the other thing that Friedman said about San Jose was that he thinks that Pavelski is going free agent. they've got the money that they have to invest in Meyer, and maybe that changes if Carlson goes someplace else. But the feeling is that that Pavelski may want to test the waters.
I don't think he will.
I mean,
there is nothing. Yeah, there's nothing.
He's been there all of his career, but
there's nothing in San Jose's past or at all, or the way they do things, or the way they handle their players, or the way Doug Wilson is, that would make me think for a second that that's possible. Like, I think that he has been very good at getting guys to stay. Pavelski is the captain of the team. This year was very, like, obviously his stock even rose higher in the fans' eyes this year when what happened.
But apparently Pavelski and his representation was not too pleased after they brought in Kane and then signed him to an extension. Basically, he took Pavelski's money.
Well, I do agree with that one, and but the fact that they did that tells me they're not concerned with being able to sign Pavelski. That they feel like, and that they're going to give him more than that. They're going to give him, they're going to give more. I think they're
going to get a note this week in their mailbox that says Erik Karlsson's not coming back, so then they won't be that worried.
I think he and Couture will probably make the same amount. They'll probably make $8 million. That is a typical San Jose thing to do.
No,
how many years did Marleau and Thornton make the same exact contract?
Yeah,
until
the year that Marleau left.
Right, to me, Pavelski and Couture.
The Leafs paid him.
Are the guys? So Thornton doesn't have to come back. Nyquist doesn't have to come back.
You say that to get a response from me, Russ.
Well, that's all right. I mean, if you want to pay him the money they're paying him,
it's not coming out of my pocket, but
okay.
No. Let me first ask this, because
they could make a trade though.
Well, okay, because you mentioned it in your blog today, yep. And I don't think there. Okay, the scenario that seems the most common with Marleau is the Brooks Orpik scenario, that the Leafs trade him someplace where he is bought out. That is the only way that he probably goes back to San Jose, because I can't even say there's no way the Leafs are retaining 50% of his salary. None. Right. Not 0%. They need the cap space. They would rather pay an asset, a draft pick, or a prospect than to shave money off of Marleau's deal. I think they can get it done. It's going to be difficult. The LA scenario is hilarious, because Friedman reported that LA was looking to trade either Kovalchuk or Jeff Carter in a deal for Marleau. First of all, there's no cap savings. Kovalchuk is probably almost as much over the hill as Marleau is. I'd rather take Marleau. At least he's got a good personality. He's a leader, and he's got.
To be fair, Kovalchuk has a little more on left, Mike. I got to be fair about.
Well, but in terms of the way he played last year, Russ, I'd question that. And Jeff Carter, do you think Jeff Carter wants to go to Toronto?
No, he doesn't want to go anywhere. Jeff Carter, you could talk about trade all you want. He's not going anywhere. His feet are firmly in the sand, man. Right.
Exactly. And the other one, which is laughable, is Dion Phaneuf. Dion Phaneuf. I mean, they're going to buy. The reason that name has been floated out there, Peter, is because Dion Phaneuf is going to be bought out by the Kings unless they find a sucker to take him. And
I heard a Phaneuf rumor to Winnipeg to solve their and I just like, come on.
Enough is enough.
I mean, one of the things that's crazy is I can't recall in recent UFA, like lead up to the draft and UFA periods, of so much looniness being spoken of.
Yeah,
there is a lot of loony,
and it's
coming from everywhere.
Yeah, it's coming from all over the place, isn't it? And what's weird is, like, I got blamed for one today. I was listening to XM, and I'm like, what was the one they said today? There was some crazy rumor that I've never even written about this player, but it was funny. So I'm listening today, and I'm like, I hear it on XM. They're like, well, it's a Hockey Buzz thing. I'm like, no, it's not. There's like there are so many things. Like, be careful before you blame someone for things.
Well, you've been blamed for years on this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, but right? I'm like the poster guy for this, and it's like. And the fact is, I don't throw out these crazy things that people do.
You say things, and I think the interesting thing I've always said to people ask you, "Oh, what's he like?" I said, "Look, the guy just tells you what he hears, And he's not trying to dissect it down and turn it into some
Sure.
diabolical conspiracy. He's just passing along what he hears. Some of it might not be 100% accurate. Some of it might not be close to accurate, but that's what he's hearing. And he's just giving you a glimpse into the window. I said, the other stuff that's coming out right now is people pretending that they are so close to the action.
Right.
And that they're hearing things. And I'm seeing rumors coming out of Tampa about Winnipeg. And I'm like, no.
Well, I mean, symbolic.
Let me just address that for 1 second, Mike. Then you can go on. I thank you, first of all, Peter, very much for that, because I really do appreciate that, because it means a lot coming from you guys, because I do respect you guys so much. And yeah, I am just doing that. And I also and it's worth saying that I put things out there purposely. Like for years, I've had, Lyle Richardson, who's, the guy who does Spectre, is a really nice guy. And we get along very well. He's been doing rumors for longer than I have. He's the rumor king, I would say, on the internet. Yeah, we get in this fight all the time because he's, he'll talk to me. I'll put something out and he'll send me a text or whatever saying, how could that possibly happen? How could that possibly? And I was like, I honestly have no freaking idea how it could possibly happen. It's not my job to figure out how it could possibly happen. It's not my job to look at it and say that I know all the other deals the teams are gonna have to make that deal happen. But that is being discussed. So take it for what it is. I often agree with people. So
I do want to mention this. David Alter put out a tweet asking Leafs fans, and over 3,100 of them voted, would you do Marlowe for Phaneuf straight up? And 69% said no.
Yeah, because Dion. I mean, it's one thing if Dion Phaneuf gets bought out and you sign him for $750,000 on a 1-year contract,
right?
Because if he's done, then you can just bury his contract in the minors. But it's another thing to take $5.25 million for 2 years.
Yeah,
it saves you only $1 million next year, and then you got an albatross of $5.25 around your neck for next year. So it makes no sense whatsoever. Now, symbolic of what Eck is just talking about, the ridiculousness last night of Sean Avery in a drunken stupor coming out on Instagram. And I think I said to Russ, he purposely mispronounced the names, because either that or he was drunk as a skunk, where he says Nazem Kadri and Jacob Trouba. So he could come back and say when he was sober, oh, no, I meant, no, I didn't mean Nazem Kadri and Jacob Trouba. I meant these imaginary guys. That trade makes absolutely no sense for one reason. Trouba is going to do a Carlson. He's probably going to tell Winnipeg, I'm not signing anywhere. I got 1 year left on my contract. You trade me, I'm going to test UFA next year. And Kadri is signed for 3 more years at $4.5 million. And apparently the Leafs phone is ringing off the hook when it comes to Kadri and teams interested. So it doesn't make sense. It makes no sense at all unless Trouba signs a long-term contract, and he's not going to.
Mike, I think he's starting a new show, just like Comedy Central has that show Drunk History. I think he's been watching the show and decided, hey, what if I had a show, Drunk Rumors? And so Drunk Hockey Rumors. So
I think just drunk hockey players, man. There's plenty of guys out there you could find for that one.
Peter, I mean, is my read wrong here?
It's not wrong. It's not wrong at all. It's just this weird thing that's going on, and I think Avery just trolled everyone.
Yes.
and just had some fun with it. It's kind of like what's his face, Mike Commodore, before the trade deadline with this hashtag pack here. It's hilarious, right?
Mike Babcock's,
he's just having fun. I mean,
Babcock's favorite defenseman, Mike Commodore.
Yeah, and it's all hilarious, right? Like, Avery was just, and it just got everyone wound up so fast. And I think there's a total basis to make the argument that you could find a way to make a Trouba for Kadri deal with some other pieces happen. It's absolutely in the realms of possibility.
Yeah,
but it's not doing 1 for 1, not at this point in time.
No.
And that's obvious.
I just think that, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. I just think that Trouba, unless it's a team like Detroit, who it would make sense that he would want to play for them because he's from Michigan, and that he would sign an extension there. I don't think any place, unless he's controlling the situation, I don't think he's signing anywhere. And I think he's going to be a UFA next year, and he's going to go where he wants to go. And that mitigates the value that Kevin Cheveldayoff can get for Trouba, because you're only getting 1 year of him.
Here's the Trouba thing that everyone's wondering. Okay, Trouba has made it very clear that he wants to sign for an American team. That's been something that's been going on forever, right? The question is, what people are questioning is whether or not that is something he is just saying because he doesn't want to play in Winnipeg and doesn't want to insult Winnipeg directly and say, I just want to play in America, or whether he just doesn't really want to play in Winnipeg specifically. That's what people are questioning, like, because if you're Trouba, but you're like, say, I don't want to play in Winnipeg, you're an absolute jerk, right? If you say I want to play for an American team, it's not nearly as jerky, as the one move. So is he just saying the and it's all, remember, none of this is being said publicly. This is all just sort of behind the scenes, but what he's saying to friends and stuff like that. But has he been careful enough to actually say, I really want to play for an American team? And is his way of saying that is not just trying not to piss off or just diss Winnipeg itself. Peter, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay. I think, if you go back to 2016 when he did the holdout, the statement from Overhart was his client wanted a place where he could play, realize his full potential, and blah, blah, blah. So the only thing missing up until this year was points. Trouba got points this year. Yeah. And that was the missing ingredient. Now, apparently, from the people I've talked to, last year, that was the concern when they were trying to move him. This year, lots of interest.
Yeah.
So
there is tons.
I think, and you remember in the first, when Chevy went and chatted with him, he probably said, look, we can move you, but you're not going to get what you want or where you want until you do the other things. And now he's done them. And so there's a lot of options there. Mm-hmm. Does he want to be in an American city? I think he does. There's a rumor that his dad can't travel to, to Canada. Really? I believe I've looked up the reason why, and it's not a criminal case. It's a that he's involved in. He's named in a lawsuit. It's a civil case, so he can travel.
That can happen. I can never return to Denmark, so I understand that.
Yeah, he can travel. It's just that Trouba's girlfriend is now a med student in Florida, where he spends his off seasons, and there's just some lifestyle things I think that come with it, and he wants to have access to a certain lifestyle. It's not going to happen in Winnipeg, so they'll find a place for him.
But do you know where Jacob Trouba gets his haircut?
What's that?
Do you know where Jacob Trouba gets his haircut?
No, I don't.
Okay, super asking for a friend.
Super guys. But Peter, you'll agree that if Kurt Overhart comes out before July 1st and says, we're going to accept the qualifying offer from Winnipeg for the 1 year deal, and we're, even if he gets traded, we're going to, what Carlson basically said, we're not going to sign, we're going to play out the contract, and he's going to go UFA.
Yeah. Then
Cheveldayoff, he gets probably a Carlson-like package, maybe not even as much, because Carlson won 2 Norris trophies and Trouba hasn't won any, but we know how good of a defenseman he is. They're not going to get honestly, I think there's a possibility that if he just takes the qualifying offer and the amount of the return is not great, Winnipeg might keep him and just use him as an own rental. I think that's a low percentage, but I think it's still possible.
I think that's most likely what's going to happen too.
Yeah, I do too. I think the own rental thing is very possible. I
don't think that's going to happen.
You don't think so?
I don't think there's. Well, look, I know for a fact that someone in the Jets, literally, I am one person removed from this conversation, and it was told to me last week before I left. And I can't name the person's name, but they told them say bye-bye to Trouba.
So they need
he's gone.
They need the cap space.
They need the cap space. They need the cap space. They need to end the saga.
So they in that case, even if he says that, even if Overhart comes out and says that, they're accepting of a package where they're getting a first round pick and prospects, because that's cheap assets that they can bring back.
I think they would take on salary if it were the right thing, because they've got other ways they can find salary, right? They've got other ways.
Yeah.
Well, like we've talked about the Gossespierre for Trooper rumors, which are still very much out there.
Yeah, that's the other one. Like Russ, I think you were the first one. I think off air one time we talked about that. You brought it up, and you maybe brought it up too. But I've heard it here as well.
Yeah,
that there's been conversations.
No, it's
I
definitely,
think the only hiccup on that is they really need to get him locked up if they do it here, because getting Trouba next year doesn't put the Flyers in the Stanley Cup. It doesn't.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And
but the Flyers don't need to be in the Stanley Cup next year, but they sure as hell need to be in the playoffs.
No,
sure, that might help with that. That might make that happen.
And I'm not starting this as a rumor, because if I was reporting it as such, people would laugh at me. But I think that, if they could get a defenseman back with reasonable salary with term, that would be somebody that Cheveldayoff would want. I'm not. Nikita Zaitsev is an okay defenseman. He's
actually got a lot more value than you think.
Yeah, no. I was just about to say that because he provides cost certainty. He eats minutes. And I think if he goes someplace else, he's going to put up more points than he has in Toronto, because in Toronto, I think he was limited because of the role that Babcock wanted. And I'm not saying, because I have no idea whether Winnipeg would be interested in Zaitsev, but if they got cost certainty 2, 3, 4 years on a defenseman, and they could trade Trouba, and it's a team that would want 1 year with Trouba, like I think Toronto would, then Toronto would do that, and maybe Winnipeg would do that. But I don't know whether that's possible. It's probably impossible.
I don't know if they have the right. It feels like with Zaitsev, you need a really strong Russian contingency or something along the lines of, like a really strong Russian community. I don't know what the Russian community is like in Winnipeg.
Well, that's why there's been some chatter about the Islanders. There's been some chatter about the Devils.
The Islanders make a lot.
Did you say the Russian community?
Yeah.
Actually, there's a strong one. And here, get ready, Russ. You'll love this. When I first moved to Winnipeg, our new neighbors, when Nikolai Habibulin came here, he was billeted with our neighbor's mom because she was Russian heritage and could speak the language.
There you go.
Kid you not.
Does Leonid Brezhnev live on your street too?
There's only like 3 streets in Winnipeg.
No, there's a lot of parks.
Winnipeg
is
which is amazing why Brazil didn't like it.
We're going to move to North America. Let's see, where can we go? We're going to go someplace warm. Let's head. We got it because we've been here forever in Russia. Where are we going to go?
I lived in Siberia. Now it's Winnipeg. It's the same thing.
Well, I guess if you live in Siberia, Winnipeg is the South.
Right.
So yeah, I think they really this is a Lou Lamoriello type of thing that you could see happening in the Island. I think the Islanders make a lot of sense with Zaitsev.
Right. I agree with that.
And the Island has a great, Russian community.
In Brooklyn, not on the Island.
In Brooklyn, but still close. Kessel to the Sharks. People want to know about this rumor that I threw out today. I wanted the Kessel thing to start off with to say that Minnesota is still trying to. Or at least they're hopeful that they can still
no trade clause.
That they can still get him to do that. I don't know if they can or not. There's a lot of people lobbying. Okay, so
and it does. It's funny because it does sound because I read one report that said Kessel really wants to play in Arizona.
Yeah, I
likes golfing.
Kessel has a list of teams, and they are, but they most of them, with the exception of what I have heard Arizona, but with the exception of Arizona, most of the teams that Kessel wants to go to are really competitive teams, which is always a tough spot. Part of that, I think, is Kessel it's not like his first rodeo on being traded. So he sort of, I think when he puts his list of teams together, he puts his list of teams together on some teams that he knows they won't trade him to. Like the Flyers are on Kessel's list of teams. Okay.
Yeah. Toronto is probably on there. Boston's probably.
If you ask me, I think Paul Fenton should take Phil out to Uncle Frankie's in Minnesota to try and seal the deal.
Yeah, we just go to a wedding at the Mall of America. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, I think that. No,
I gotta tell you this.
Yeah.
Here's what Uncle Frankie says: counter serve eatery for hot dogs and more. So wait,
hot dogs are your best thing you got going?
Yeah.
He's the spokesman for Oscar Mayer. Come on,
hot dogs. Then I can't imagine I need anything else.
He is the spokesmodel for Oscar Mayer. Come on.
Hot dogs and more.
And more.
That's awesome. Yeah, we should definitely do a show from there at some point.
Uncle Frankie's. They get 4.5 stars.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, I was speaking
Actually,
with
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hot dog places in Minnesota. This could be a Phil Kessel location.
Yeah.
Can I throw a quick little crazy thing about like along those lines for Tampa? I was in Nashville with my wife over the last weekend for our 20th wedding anniversary, and
how was the hot chicken?
You know, we didn't have hot chicken because it's like I feel like that's something that everyone eats. I don't eat cold chicken.
That's like coming to Buffalo and not having chicken wings.
I know, but my wife doesn't eat hardly any. She's got, like I said, she just never had a condiment in her life. She's a really tough one to feed.
So you went to Nashville and she ate salads.
Oh no, she ate Miller Lights, and lots of IPAs.
Okay.
That's what she basically ate. We did go. So 2 quick things about Nashville that are just hilarious. The one thing is, it is the bridal what do you call it? Like a bachelorette party, capital of the world. I didn't realize this, but there are more bachelorette parties going on Broadway in Nashville than any place in the world. And we must have seen 25 brides, and their bridal parties. It is crazy for that. It's like, it's like for guys to go to Vegas, Nashville is like the place that bachelorettes go, which is nuts. The other thing is I went to
there's a hilarious Twitter story about a bachelorette part or a bridal shower party going wrong in Nashville because they had the NFL draft.
Yes.
And what they ended up doing is
they were in a bar, and my wife, we're waiting. We're in this really cool place. My wife's waiting in line, to get to the restroom, and she's with a Canadian bachelorette party from Calgary, and they take her to like a special bathroom that they knew about in a different place, something like that. And she's like, my husband works in hockey. He always told me to trust Canadians. I'm going to go with you. So but they were really, but the other places we went to I'm going to share this other story for later. I want to keep going. There's too many good, funny stories.
Well, just one quick thing about Nashville, then we'll end the show, is the fact that it seems to be generally accepted fact that Matt Duchene that's one of the 2 or 3 destinations he's likely to go to, like we talked about at the deadline, but it could be Columbus. They could overpay him, but there seems to be some movement there. The question is, how do they open up the cap space? Plus, there's some movement in terms of Roman Josi getting a new deal. If that's the case, then PK Subban is gone.
Well, I think that, as surprising as it is, I think there's a growing possibility of that. I think it really was surprising to me because PK has fit in very well there. I am sick and tired of people saying that PK is a bad locker room presence.
No,
it makes me insane. Like on the internet, they're like, if PK is moving, it's not because of his locker room presence. It's because of his cap hit. Okay, it has nothing to do with anything but his cap hit. And
it's because of his cap hit, but also, as when I mentioned this to Kevin the last time he was on the show, I asked him whether it was the cap hit or like sort of, he's a guy that sucks up all the air in the room. He's a very, very popular. He's very like
that. I mean, Mike, that's like, in Montreal was that Montreal locker room that there were issues with him, but it wasn't just him in that locker room. That was also Michel Therrien's room, right?
Pacioretty, and it was right.
It was a crazy. It was. He was actually trying to keep the peace more often than not. He was like, people just infuriates me when people go after PK Subban as like this problem child. He's just
but Eck, you don't see Kyle Turris or Ryan Johansson at the 24 hours of Le Mans. You saw PK Subban with Lindsey Vonn. I'm talking about the fact that he naturally has a lot of press attention on him because he's a star player, because he's a Norris Trophy winner.
He likes to do stuff, and it's fine. I mean, he's allowed to go there. He doesn't have anything going on right now.
I'm saying like that might be one reason in terms of like other players just having a problem with that. He's not the epicenter of everything that's going on in Nashville, and he's treated as such. So I'm just saying he's got 3 years left at $9 million. He's still a really good defenseman. He's a right-hand shot. I could see a number of teams saying that is more acceptable for 3 years than going out and spending big money on Tyler Myers or Jake Gardner.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I didn't finish the Sharks thing with Kessel. Okay, so Kessel to the Sharks is a possibility. I was told it's not like the number one possibility there, but the idea is probably tied somehow to Pavelski. And if there is an issue with Pavelski leaving, Pavelski leaves and Carlson leaves, and Thornton decides not to come back or whatever, they are going to have to replace scoring. They're just going to have to replace some scoring.
Right. And and again, it provides cost certainty. You will see deals in the next month that are going to be made simply for cost certainty purposes. And
for sure,
one thing we can talk about more tomorrow is the fact that the cap, Friedman reported this, and I saw somebody else report it as well. The fact that a lot of big market teams lost in the first round in terms of hockey related revenue may keep the cap. Now everybody's assuming $83 million. That's been the number that's out there. Even Cap Friendly has adjusted their assumption of cap for next year at 83, and they're saying there's a distinct possibility it could be 81.5. Which that $1.5 million is going to be a big deal. You don't think it's going to be a big deal? It could be a big deal for a lot of teams.
A huge deal. A huge deal for teams. That's a play there. I mean, that's a serious, like a third or fourth liner. You know, that you have to get in there, and it enables you to be able to give that third or fourth liner money to somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, the most important thing, you know, with what's happening now is we're seeing with the bigger contracts, and it is interesting to me, and something I think we should talk about maybe tomorrow.
Yep.
Is what is a $9 or $10 million player, because that is the new like thing, right? Everybody's like, oh, he's a $10 million player. You know, like Marner's a $10 million player. Taylor Hall's a $10 million player.
Mm-hmm.
Are they really like that? And you know, those are two examples of guys that, you know, you might say yes, they are, but there's a lot more guys. Like, is Pavelski a $10 million player? No, I don't think so. You know, I don't think, you know, Sebastian Aho a $10 million player. No, not yet. But 10 million is like the whole concept of $10 million has become a thing now. Like when you talk to people,
right.
I mean, everybody keeps saying that, oh, you know, I can't tell you how many people I hear are going to make $10 million. I mean, it's like, for the fact of the matter is, like, if all the people I'm hearing are going to make $10 million, are going to make $10 million, then there's going to be no cap space for anybody. So the reality is that you can only have a couple of them.
I'll leave everybody with this, because I did a calculation when it came to the Marner thing, because Patrick Kane is the highest paid winger in the league at $10.5 million.
Yep.
If you take the amount of the cap it was when they signed him for $10.5 million and transferred that to this year, the percentage, and paid Marner at the same percentage, he would make $12.2 million. Nobody's saying Marner is worth 12.2. So
but no one could also say that he's anywhere close to the negotiating power right now that Kane had at that point.
Right. Kane had won 3 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But the thing is, in terms of it's almost accepted Marner is going to be a $10 million player. It's just a question of what Kyle Dubas is going to have to do to open up cap space on the team for that reality, because it more than likely that's what Marner is going to get.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see. We're definitely going to see, and that's going to be the thing to watch. But there's how many of these kind of players are there? You know, like how many is? I think it's crazy. I mean, in Winnipeg, like you're looking at the guys that are coming up in Winnipeg, Peter. Like who's your $10 million players? You know, like
there isn't one.
Right, there isn't. I mean, but you know, if he was a UFA right now, Scheifele would be a $10 million.
I was going to say the guy who's the $10 million player is making 6.1.
Yeah.
You know, he would be a $10 million player. So there's that. But, you know, you know, but is he the only guy that would probably get that?
Well, I mean, yeah, because of age, right? Like Wheeler's getting 8.125.
Yeah.
And, you know, Kyle Connor's probably going to get around 7.
Right.
Patrick Laine, could he be a $10 million player?
No. I think if the Jet. Yeah, let's talk about Patrick Laine for a second. And someone who put out something that was not just.
Yes.
Not just dumb, but
this is the one that XM blamed me for. Thank you, Peter.
This comes from someone else on another website who really, you know, really has never had anything accurate to say about Winnipeg.
Alexander
and the whole, what's that?
Alexander Day, hockey.
Yeah. And the whole thing about it is who in the world thinks that Patrick Laine can use an offer sheet as leverage?
That's what it was. Yeah.
There's no planet that makes sense, because
Yes.
if you're frustrated and you want out, the last thing you do is find a team to give you an offer sheet, because they should have the exact same questions the Jets do about what Laine is.
Of course they do.
And then they match it, and you've lost everything.
No.
It makes no
Jets,
sense.
I look at who makes that offer sheet, and if that's not a great team, I take that. I let Laine go so fast and take those draft picks.
Well, honestly, and it won't be proved out until probably the second or third week of July. But I am so anxious to bash everyone over the head who has been saying offer sheet constantly, because I don't know if there's going to be one.
But I'll tell you why they're saying it, Mike, and
it's leverage. I get.
I agree. No, I agree with you, and it is leverage, and it's often trying to force trades. That's what they're trying to do. Yeah. But the people who are reporting it, some of them are just being ridiculous. Like I looked into the Laine thing for a split second, and that is absolutely absurd. But there are some, there are rumors, there are legitimate rumors about Marner offer sheets. Now I don't think it's going to happen, but there are legitimately people, there are GMs or assistant GMs that have said that they're considering it. I know that for a fact. So that's why you're hearing that. That's why you're hearing the rumors out there. They're saying that in a way to stir the pot, to get things going, to move things around.
Right.
And you sort of have to know that by now. Like you have to, I always say that no one gives you a rumor for the hell of it. Like no one gives me a rumor.
Your motive.
There's what you can hope for is that, because like someone like myself, or I mean, obviously like guys like Elliot Freeman who know more people than me, or Mackenzie knows more people than me. The more people the better quality rumors you get. And this is why, because when someone talks to you and gives me a rumor, if they give me something real, it's only because I have something for them to give back to them. And that's often how this thing works. Like this is an exchange of information type thing. They'll say, "What have you heard on so and so?" And I'll be like, "Well, I've heard this and this and this." And then I'll say, "What have you heard?" And then they'll tell me something that might be legitimate, often not involving their own team, but something that they've heard. If they tell me something about their own team or a player that they actually have a conflict of interest with, then I have to look at it like there's a motivation behind what they're saying. And you have no choice, right? That's the way you go. There's a few people. 3 to 5 people that I trust beyond that have known long enough that they'll tell me something even if they have motivation, and those people are usually really brutally honest, and they'll tell me something that's like completely, you can tell that there's not a motivation because they're telling me something that's hurting their own possibilities, and it's often off the record. So it's like completely, so understand that all the rumors you're hearing now are being put out, and people are going to use Twitter. They're going to use everything they can to build up marketplaces for people, to build up possibilities. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be like beware of false prophets time. It's going to be like crazy stuff for sure. But there's no question that I've heard this. I've heard all sorts of, things. The big thing now that I haven't written about it yet because I've been trying to sear through it, is the Taylor Hall stuff, which is like, that's like, there's so many options with that right now.
That was running rampant at the combine. Apparently.
Yeah. So you heard, and it's been running rampant at the finals. I mean, all the same people are in both those situations. So the combine.
Yeah. And the thing is that it sounds like from what's out there that Taylor Hall's holding Ray Shero accountable in terms of, well, if this team is going to be, if this team is good, I'll stay. But if it's not good, then I have to think for my. I mean, I think
I think that, like I said before, I hate that kind of stuff because Taylor Hall's a star. He's got to be the one who's got to, he can't sit there. But I think that what's happening, and when you look at what they've got, I mean, they've got the first pick overall coming in. They just had the first pick a couple years ago, and they've got a lot going on. So New Jersey's got enough. It's just a question of whether or not Hall wants to play there. I think is what it comes down to. Is that where he wants to play? Is there another option for him? There might be, and there are options, but again, he's a $10 million player. I mean, he just won an MVP. He's a $10 million player.
If he's a $10 million player, if his knee is good, and that's the problem. Most of last year, after an MVP season, he missed most of last year with a knee injury. That has to be concerned. New Jersey's got tons and tons of cap space, so but they're a budget team. And they may not want to spend $10 million a year on Hall with the concerns about his knee.
Now, yeah, in New Jersey, you're right. And New Jersey's looking at it, but New Jersey has a year to figure that out, so they can sit there and they can say, because he's not a UFA coming up on July 1st.
Right.
So they can sit there and they can say, we need to see that your knee's okay before we figure out what to do. So I don't think you're going to see anything happen with Hall now at all. Like I don't think you're going to see it's, it could happen July 1st. They might just decide, okay, fine. But I think in all likelihood he'll be something we'll be talking about at the trade deadline for sure.
Right.
And
Sammy Vatanen too, because he's a UFA at the end of the year. They traded Henrique to get him, and now are they going to sign him to an long-term extension, or are they going to let him walk?
Right. No, exactly. And and that's a big issue. There's a lot of really big issues there, right? So we do have to get going, but there's a lot more we can talk about. Obviously, we could go all day. We'll be back again tomorrow to talk about this. There's tons happening. Stay tuned to Hockey Buzz. I'm going to be writing again in the next couple hours here.
Yeah, we'll talk about the game 5 of the Cup final and the what's going on with Chara and Grzelcyk and the injuries and
I think from talking to people, it sounds like Grzelcyk's going to play, and it sounds like Chara's not. So
yeah,
we'll see. Chara, it was really interesting. Like I texted you guys the other day when you came back to the bench that my wife, whose father's a dentist and has been around people with their jaws wired shut a lot, told me right when you came back to the bench and had this cage on, he's like, either his jaw is wired shut or his jaw is totally broken. She told me that.
Yeah, and the only thing I said was, I don't know how they would wire his jaw shut in the locker room. You would need a dentist there to be able to do that. So I thought he was just,
Yeah, you're right. It seemed kind of ridiculous, but he was holding it in such a way.
Yes.
I mean, maybe they had some kind of mouth thing that they could put in there that he was.
I think so.
There was something, because it definitely wasn't right.
Yeah.
And I can't see him at all playing tonight. Tomorrow night. That would be crazy insane. Even on Chara's level, even like superhero Chara,
Yeah.
It would be Kurt Schilling, bloody glove, Willis Reed on a broken leg type thing. So we'll see.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks again. Thanks everybody for watching. Remember, you can go to HockeyBuzz.com and check all this out. We got a lot of interesting things happening. Make sure you follow everybody on Twitter. And remember that the Buzz is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.